how blindly he follows Moe, and just what makes me laugh, and I think what makes everybody laugh.
The Three Stooges have made an everlasting impression and secured their place in comedy history with their outrageous pranks, slapstick humor, and memorable facial expressions. From the early years of vaudeville in the 1929s to the early years of television in the 1950s and 1960s, their effect lasted decades. Although their on-screen characters are adored and treasured, there was plenty happening behind the scenes, tales that have stayed concealed from the public eye. Thus, what exactly do we know regarding the Three Stooges? When no one was looking, what exactly was concealed? Help us unearth the truth about the Stooges that they tried to hide from their fans. Moe Howard and Larry Fine's names practically pop into anyone's head the moment the trio of Stooges is brought up. Their appearance, their pranks, and the way they delivered their lines have left an indelible mark on comedy history. Yet there's a lot more nuance to the Three Stooges story than meets the eye. Although there are more than just three members to the group, the moniker The Three Stooges gives the impression that there are only three. Six Stooges altered the group's dynamic over the years by performing at different times. An important figure in the Stooges' history is Moe Howard, whose given name is Moses Harry Howard. His confident and frequently violent comedic manner set the tone for the group, and his bowl-cut hairdo gave him the appropriate demeanor for a ringleader. Larry Fine, Moses's companion, provided the ideal counterpoint to Moe's authoritarian personality with his unruly hair and constantly changing emotions. He was able to switch roles comedically, playing both the rational voice and the target of most high raids. In contrast, the third slot had a more dynamic group of individuals. Originally called Jerome Horwitz, Curly Howard is arguably the most recognizable third Stooge. Fans adored Curly for his curved head, charming vocalizations, and innocent innocence. The trio's irrepressible comic energy was balanced by his physical humor and innocent demeanor, which stood in stark contrast to Moe's abrasiveness and Larry's middle-ground character. However, Moe's older brother Shemp Howard served as the third Stooge prior to Curly's indisputable fame. His distinct approach, which was drastically different from Curly's, brought a new element to the band. Shemp was formerly a member of the Stooges, but he went his own way in the acting world before eventually getting back into the band. Two other members would join the Stooges when Curly left owing to health problems. Shemp returned and then eventually passed away. In contrast to his predecessors, Joe Besser wore an air of gentle femininity when he took over. Even though it was short, his time with the Stooges was unforgettable because of the happiness he provided to the show's viewers. Joe DeRita, better known as Curly Joe, joined the Stooges in the 1960s. Like Curly Howard, he adapted his technique to the times by adding a comic twist. A tribute to the Three Stooges' durability, flexibility, and unique style of humor is the fact that they have continued to evolve despite the constant turnover in its membership. Although Moe and Larry never changed, the Third Stooges' dynamic added new energy to their routines, which kept them current throughout the years. While the public tends to focus on the legendary trio, the whole history of this six-member legacy reveals a more complex and fascinating progression of comic styles, partnerships, and unwavering commitment to storytelling. How, therefore, did the Three Stooges achieve their level of fame and fortune? How much hardship did they have to endure? American comedian and actor Moses Harry Horwitz was born on June 19, 1897, and passed away on May 4, 1975. He was best known by his stage name, Moe Howard. For 40 years, he presided over the Three Stooges, a comedic trio that appeared in films and TV shows. The original members of such ensemble were vaudeville performers Ted Healey and his Stooges. When Moe was a little child, he shaved off his curls with scissors, giving him a unique hairdo that resembles a bowl cut. Growing up, he went by Moe, but he eventually adopted the name Harry. Although neither of his parents nor his brothers Irving nor Benjamin were actors, He and his brothers Shemp and Curly Howard became the famous comedy trio known as the Three Stooges. His older brother Jack remembered that he had a lot of Horatio Alger books and that reading them was his favorite pastime. This suggests that he liked reading. They set his creative juices flowing and supplied him with ideas by the dozen. They had a significant role in instilling in him the values and principles that would lead him to achieve greatness in life. His acting career benefited from this quality, as he had no trouble memorizing his lines. He was so determined to be famous that he boldly chose to ignore the conventional route to a degree. The temptation of the stage was too great, so he abandoned high school to pursue it. Before a 1910 fire destroyed the films made at the Vitagraph Studios in Midwood, Brooklyn, and much of Howard's work as well, he earned tiny roles in pictures that were being made there while performing unpaid errands. He met the young man who would greatly enhance his professional ambitions, Ernest Lee Nash, better known as Ted Healey, in 1909. During the summer of 1912, they were both diving girls for Annette Kellerman. The origins of Moe's iconic hairstyle are also detailed. Because his mom preferred females, she never chopped Moe's hair, which made him the target of relentless bullying and taunting from his classmates. Moe and his buddies, driven by exasperation and the need to blend in, took cover in a shed. There, they used a bowl to cut off his locks, creating the now iconic hairdo. Moe was taken aback when his mother gave her approval to his haircut and the taunting stopped. They had no idea that the haircut would become a sign of an icon. Before their father intervened, Howard and his older brother Shemp tried to break into the entertainment industry by singing in bars. In 1914, they joined a minstrel show troupe and spent 2 summers performing as Howard and Howard, a study in black on a Mississippi River showboat. They also performed makeup-free for a competing vaudeville tour. He performed a vaudeville routine with Ted Healey in 1922. While performing on stage in 1923, Moe cried out to Shemp while he was sitting in the audience. In response, Shemp began to taunt Moe, which the two brothers found hilarious. In 1969, the Stooges tried to shoot their last feature, Kook's Tour, which was primarily a documentary following Curly Joe, Howard, and Larry as they met with fans and toured the United States while not in character. On January 9, 1970, while filming was underway, Larry had a massive stroke that paralyzed his left side, causing production to cease. On January 24, 1975, at the age of 72, he passed away. A 52-minute home video version of Kook's Tour was published when sufficient footage of Larry was filmed. Howard requested Emil Sitka, a long-standing Three Stooges supporting actor, to replace Larry following Fine's stroke. However, the final lineup never captured any footage during the performance, which led Healey to quickly hire Shemp Howard as a permanent member of the group. Moe and his mother entered the real estate business after he retired in June 1925 following his marriage to Helen Schoenberger. While this was happening, Healey and her regular stooge Shemp Howard shot to stardom in the Schubert Brothers' A Night in Spain, which was a smash hit on Broadway and across the country. In March 1928, Healey enlisted the services of vaudeville violinist Larry Fine to augment the ensemble for A Night in Spain, which had just concluded its 4-month run in Chicago. When things slowed down for Moe in show business, he sold real estate, but the men still got residuals for their later work and kept most of the money from Stooges merchandise sales. Still, he had a few cameos on The Mike Douglas Show in the 70s and had small roles in films like Dr. Death, Seeker of Souls, 1973, and Don't Worry, We'll Think of a Title, 1966. While interviewing the author of a Where Are They Now book, Moe, his hairstyle reflecting the era, made an unexpected cameo in one of Douglas's episodes. The question, "Whatever became of the Three Stooges?" was posed to the writer by an audience member during an opportunity for questions on well-known figures. In the Schubert Brothers' A Night in Spain, which had a successful Broadway run and a national tour, Howard rose to national celebrity with regular stooge Shemp. In March 1928, Healey enlisted the services of vaudeville violinist Larry Fine to augment the ensemble for A Night in Spain, which had just concluded its 4-month run in Chicago. Moe was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles a week earlier in April. He died of lung cancer at the age of 77 on May 4, 1975. This was more than a month before his 78th birthday, and it was little over 3 months after Larry Fine's death. For the most of his adult life, he smoked heavily. His last resting place was in an outdoor tomb at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City. Helen Schoenberger, his 75-year-old wife, passed away from a heart attack on October 31, 1975, and was laid to rest in the tomb on the right side of him. Moe was in the midst of penning his autobiography, I Stooged to Conquer, when he passed away. The original 1977 title was Moe Howard and the Three Stooges. On August 30, 1983, at 1560 Vine Street, Moe and the Three Stooges were honored with a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Larry Fine came into this world on October 5, 1902, into a Jewish family from Russia at the corner of 3rd and South Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His parents, Joseph Feinberg and Fanny Lieberman, had a jewelry and watch repair business. When Larry was a little boy, his father burned his arm with the acid he used to check the purity of gold in jewelry. He reached for the bottle, but he splattered it all over his forearm, hurting it badly. In order to help Larry rebuild the muscles in his forearm that had been injured, his parents eventually enrolled him in violin lessons. His parents had intended to send him to a music academy in Europe once he grew so good at it, but the start of World War I prevented that from happening. He went on to play the violin in the Stooges films. In an effort to fortify his injured arm, Fine began boxing while he was a teenager and went on to win his first professional battle. Larry had a brief boxing career until his father ended it because he did not approve of his fighting in public. Fine began his vaudeville career as a violinist when he was quite young. He crossed paths with Moe Howard and Ted Healey, who were playing in the Schubert Brothers' A Night in Spain during his tenure as Master of Ceremonies at Chicago's Rainbow Gardens from 1925 to 1928. The reason they wanted Howard to be a substitute stooge was because he was going to be absent from the play for a few months. On Ted's stooge team, he was accompanied by Bobby Pincus and Sam Moody Braun. In September 1928, Howard came back to complete Spain's national tour. He had a distinctive hairstyle that set him apart from the other Stooges. He was bald on top and had thick, bushy, curly reddish hair on the sides and back. Moe affectionately referred to him as Porcupine. Word on the street is that his initial encounter with Healey is when his distinctive auburn locks were born. His hair, which he had just soaked in the sink, dried in an unusual way while they conversed. Fine was urged by Healey to maintain the hairdo. Nash and his boyhood buddy Moe Howard were part of the Annette Kellerman Diving Girls, a vaudeville act that featured 4 lads in 1912 when Nash was 15 years old, marking his entry into the entertainment industry. Following a theatrical mishap, the act abruptly terminated, and Howard and Nash went their separate ways. When Nash decided to try his hand at vaudeville, he changed his stage name to Ted Healey. Healey quickly grew his career as a comedian and event host once his performance became popular. He made $9,000 weekly in the 1920s, making him the highest-paid vaudeville act. His new wife Betty Brown, his dog German Shepherd, and Betty Braun were all actors in his theatrical play. After losing a few acrobats in late 1923, Moe Howard responded to an ad seeking replacements for the Healey's performance, which was advertised as syncopated toes on the marquee. Since Howard lacked the necessary acrobatic skills, Healey enlisted the help of his long-lost friend to play the role of a stooge, an audience member who is selected seemingly at random to perform on stage. Healey would wind up without pants in the performance when Howard made a cameo. Following the evening performance of A Night in Spain, Ted and Betty would put on a song and dance routine for audiences at nightclubs and other venues. Nevertheless, the Healeys' marriage ended in 1928. Ted proposed a new performance that would use his Stooges and would focus on slapstick humor. Though they were performing in Venice, Healey also arranged extra gigs for his company under the names Ted Healey and his Southern Gentlemen, and subsequently, Ted Healey and his Racketeers. After its Broadway run ended in March 1930, A Night in Venice went on a short road tour. In July 1930, Healey was cast by Fox Films as a co-star in the film Soup to Nuts. Ted, Moe, Shemp, Larry, and Fred Sanborn were also cast with him. The Stooges and Healey broke up in late August 1930 over a film contract disagreement. While Sanborn went solo, the other two members of the trio started playing solo gigs under names like Howard, Fine, and Howard and the Three Lost Souls, and they frequently recycled songs from their earlier Healey performances. Healey tried to sue the Stooges for stealing his work, but the routines were created for the Shubert Theater Corporation, which owned the copyright. The Stooges obtained permission from the Shuberts to use it. Eddie Moran, who was succeeded by Richard Dick Hawkins, Paul Mousy Garner, and Jack Wolf, the father of sportscaster Warner Wolf, were Healey's replacement Stooges recruited in early 1931. This ensemble shared the stage with Healey and Billy Rose's Crazy Quilt and the Gang's All Here, both of which were staged on Broadway. Curly Howard, Moe's younger brother, replaced Shemp, who departed on August 19th to pursue a solo career, when the trio of Moe, Larry, and Shemp returned to Healey's act in late July 1932. Shortly after Shemp left, Ted Healey and Howard Fine and Howard presented Curly in Cleveland, Ohio's RKO Palace on August 27, 1932, just 8 days after Shemp had left. For the following several months, the new roster was the talk of many of the country's most exclusive nightclubs and movie palaces. Late in the spring of 1933, MGM signed Ted to a contract, and the act returned to Hollywood, this time for good. In the next year, Ted and his comedy group starred in a number of MGM shorts and even acted in theatrical features with stars like Joan Crawford and Clark Gable, such as the smash hit Dancing Lady, in which Healey and Fred Astaire had pivotal supporting roles. Major parts for Healey were offered to him independently in MGM pictures, including Bombshell, which starred Jean Harlow, and Operator 13, which co-starred Marion Davies and Gary Cooper. Larry and the Howards officially and amicably ended their business relationship with Ted Healey in March 1934. They then started working at Columbia Studios as the Three Stooges. But Shemp Howard quickly became weary of Healey's rudeness, irritability, and drunkenness. A contract was extended to him in 1932 by the Brooklyn-based Vitaphone Studios. Jerry performed his Orville nap routine, but Healey was underwhelmed and asked if that was all he could do, so Moe recommended that his younger brother Jerry take on the role of third stooge now that Shemp was gone. He insisted they find him a professional comic instead of this amateur. He appears completely off-kilter. Jerry appeared too dapper for a low comic, in Healey's opinion, with his thick chestnut hair and sophisticated waxed mustache. After Jerry stepped out of the room, he came back a few minutes later with a buzz cut and a short-lived mustache. They began improvising with this new persona, Moe and Larry. Moe's favorite Three Stooges film, You Nasty Spy, 1940, I'll Never Heil Again, 1941, and They Stooged to Conga, 1943, were all made in the 1940s when the Three Stooges were all the rage due to their anti-Nazi short films. This series of cartoons, the first of which was 9 months before Charlie Chaplin's cinematic parody The Great Dictator, featured Moe's portrayal of Adolf Hitler. Brother Curly had a stroke on May 6, 1946, while filming Half-Wit's Holiday, 1947. Before shooting Beer Barrel Polecats, 1946 began, he had already endured a string of them. Shemp stepped in to replace him, and he volunteered to stay with the group until Curly felt better enough to return. But hold that lion, starring Curly. An unplanned arrangement occurred in 1947 during a cameo appearance in the sole Three Stooges picture starring all three Howard brothers, Moe, Curly, and Shemp. The following year, he was healthy enough to make a second cameo appearance as a cook in a brief scene from Malice in the Palace. However, the video was never utilized. On January 18, 1952, at the age of 48, Curly passed away after suffering a second series of strokes. Upon Shemp's return to the act, Moe, Shemp, and Larry filmed a pilot for ABC titled Jerks of All Trades in 1949. The show was reportedly meant to be a weekly sitcom in which the Stooges would attempt a new job or business each week in the hopes that one of their endeavors would be successful. What made it funny was that no matter what they did, it always backfired. Only shot in a single day, the pilot was never broadcast. This kinescope footage was presumably meant to mimic a live-action 3-camera television production. It was 1944 that Howard's enthusiasm started to fade. Curly appears in films like Idle Rumors, 1944, and Booby Dupes, 1945, with a deeper voice and slower movements. In the time between shooting Idiots Deluxe in October 1944 and If a Body Meets a Body in March 1945, he could have had his first of several strokes. Upon Moe Howard's suggestion, he went into Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, California, on January 23, 1945, following the December 1944 filming of the feature-length Rockin' in the Rockies. There he was diagnosed with severe hypertension, a retinal hemorrhage, and obesity. Although he usually published 6 to 8 shorts a year, his illness forced him to take a break in 1945, resulting in just 5 releases. After Moe Howard begged Harry Cohn to let his younger brother rest after his discharge so he could get back on his feet, Cohn refused to stop making his lucrative Stooge shorts and firmly rejected Howard's request. From August 1945 until January 1946, the Stooges were off for 5 months. During that period, they secured a 2-month engagement to play live in New York City, working 7 days a week. While on the East Coast, Howard wed Marion Buxbaum, his third wife, following a relationship of 2 weeks that ended on October 17, 1945. Howard was hardly a shadow of his old self when he returned to Los Angeles in late November 1945. The 1946 Columbia timetable began in late January, with 2 months of relaxation, although just 24 days of labor were scheduled from early May to the end of February. Even though Howard had 8 weeks off at that time, his illness kept getting worse. Much the most basic lines of discourse were becoming more and more difficult for Howard to recall by early 1946, and his voice had grown much coarser than before. Lines had formed on his face, and he had shed a lot of weight. As a member of the Three Stooges, Howard made his last formal appearance in 1947's Half-Wits Holiday. While waiting to shoot the day's final sequence in director Jules White's chair on May 6, 1946, he had a serious stroke. He ignored the assistant director's call to the stage. Finding his brother with his head down on his chest, Moe sought him out. In retrospect, Moe realized that he could only weep since his mouth was deformed. White swiftly reworked the sequence after Moe informed him, splitting the action between Larry and Moe, and Curly was sent to the hospital. Moe later joined him there after filming Wrapped. After spending a few weeks recuperating at Woodland Hills Motion Picture Country House, Howard went back home. A supervisor at North Hollywood Hospital and Sanitarium informed the Howard family in December 1951 that the mental decline of Curly was causing problems for the nursing staff. They finally came clean about their inability to care for him and proposed a mental institution for him to be admitted to. After Moe turned him down, he was sent to San Gabriel, California's Baldy View Sanitarium. While filming He Cooked His Goose for Columbia on January 7, 1952, the crew asked Moe to assist with Curly's last relocation. Curly passed away on January 18, 1952, 11 days after this attempt failed. At 48 years old, he passed away, making his life the shortest of the Stooges. At East Los Angeles, California, he was laid to rest at the Western Jewish Institute, part of Home of Peace Cemetery, following a Jewish burial service. In 1955, Benjamin and his older brother Shemp were laid to rest there, while in 1976, Benjamin was laid to rest close to their parents, Jenny and Solomon. The Three Stooges are still very much in demand, even though it's been more than 60 years since they made a short film. Their films have remained a mainstay of American television since their 1958 debut. Despite never being considered reviewers' favorites, this tenacious comedy troupe managed to weather many personnel changes that would have put an act with less tenacity on the back burner. Without the leadership of Moe Howard, their unit would not have survived for nearly as long. It wasn't until the 1980s that the Stooges started to get some serious acclaim. Even though they frequently faced strong audience opposition, reviewers were able to appreciate Joe Besser's and Joe DeRita's distinct comedic approaches once virtually all of their films were released on DVD by 2010. Even though fans may now see each Stooge film as a separate chapter in the actor's lengthy career, thanks to DVDs, the Curlyverses. Shemp argument still rages on. Much obliged for your time. Give our channel a subscribe and watch one of our other entertaining videos.